The air in the Everett and Stone headquarters was a cocktail of polished mahogany, new technology, and silent, competitive ambition. Everett and Stone was a titan in high-end financial consulting, a Manhattan glass tower where fortunes were made, and marriages often faltered under the weight of relentless work. The protagonist, Ilara Vance. Ilara Vance was a study in quiet competence. At 32, she was the newly appointed senior creative director, a massive promotion she had earned through sheer grit, not connection. She wore her success like an impeccably tailored, slightly too formal suit. It looked good, but sometimes felt restrictive. Her life was defined by control, a necessary defense mechanism built over the last 5 years of her increasingly complex marriage to Marcus Thorne. Marcus was a brilliant but perpetually overlooked data analyst in the same firm, 3 floors below her. The marriage was a landscape of polite silence and avoided eye contact, the intimacy having been replaced by the quiet dread of disappointment. Marcus often saw Ilara's success as a spotlight illuminating his own stalled career. The boss, the enigma Julian Hayes. Ilara was waiting outside the penthouse suite's immense oak doors, the office of the CEO, Julian Hayes. Julian was the phantom of Everett and Stone. At 40, he was a near-mythic figure, a brilliant, intensely private billionaire who had inherited the firm and quadrupled its value. He was known for his ruthlessness in business and his complete anonymity outside. Ilara had never met him. No one in the firm below the VP level had. The purpose of this meeting was critical. Ilara was presenting her new multi-million-dollar rebranding campaign for the entire firm, a campaign that Julian himself had unexpectedly requested. The encounter, a muffled buzzer sounded, and the door clicked open. Ilara stepped into an office that felt less like a workspace and more like a minimalist art gallery suspended above the city. Julian was standing not behind his desk, but by the floor-to-ceiling window, bathed in the sharp, late afternoon sunlight. He turned. Ilara felt the air rush out of her lungs. He wasn't the aging, stuffy mogul she'd imagined. He was younger, perhaps 40, with a presence that instantly filled the massive room. His dark suit was tailored to perfection, but it was his eyes, a striking, intense hazel, that held her captive. They were eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Vance. His voice was deep, cultured, and carried the effortless authority of someone who rarely needed to raise it. Please. Thank you for coming up. For the next hour, Ilara presented her strategy. She expected cold interrogation. Instead, Julian listened with an unnerving, focused intensity. He didn't interrupt, but his occasional questions were surgical, going straight to the core weakness or strength of an idea. When she finished, there was a long, electric silence. "You're good, Ilara," he said, using her first name naturally, easily. "Better than I was led to believe." "I appreciate that, Mr. Hayes," she managed, her voice steadier than her heart. He pushed a small silver button on his desk, and a wall panel slid open, revealing a hidden bar. "It's 6 p.m. Shall we celebrate a successful first meeting?" As he handed her a glass of chilled, expensive mineral water, their fingers brushed. The small, accidental contact sent a completely inappropriate, unprofessional jolt through her. She snatched her hand back, suddenly overwhelmed by the gravity of his gaze. "The campaign is approved," Julian stated, his eyes still holding hers. "Now I need you to lead this project personally. It will require close collaboration." "Very close." Ilara nodded, her professional excitement warring with the strange, new tension coiled in her stomach. "I understand. I'm ready." The collision. She stayed for another 20 minutes, discussing the project's timeline. As she finally gathered her things, the door to the office burst open unexpectedly. A security guard looked panicked, attempting to usher in a disheveled man in a wrinkled suit, arguing loudly. "I don't care about your procedure, Julia," the man shouted, his voice thick with frustration. "My wife is getting an $80K bonus for that campaign, and I deserve a piece of the credit. I'm the one who ran the core data." Ilara froze, her spine locking. She knew that voice. Julian's face went instantly cold, a mask of aristocratic fury. "Get him out, security," he ordered, his voice dangerously low. But the man had seen Ilara. "Ilara, what are you doing up here? Did you talk to him? Did you tell him I ran the numbers?" The security guards moved in. Ilara's eyes flickered between the furious, demanding face of her husband, Marcus Thorne, and the icy, thunderous expression of her boss, Julian Hayes. In that terrifying, heart-stopping instant, Ilara leaned forward, close to Julian, her voice a desperate, barely audible whisper, a warning and a plea wrapped into one. "Don't turn around," she said, her chest tight with panic. "My husband's here and you're his boss." Alara's urgent whisper hung in the pristine air of the penthouse office, a fragile secret in a room full of glass and judgment. Julian Hayes, CEO of Everett and Stone, reacted not with panic but with chilling control. He didn't flinch, didn't turn to look at Marcus, who was still struggling against the security detail near the door. Instead, Julian placed his hand, warm and heavy, on the small of Alara's back, a move that was simultaneously protective, proprietary, and deeply shocking. "Take a breath, Alara," he murmured, his voice now low, intended only for her. He gently steered her toward the closed bar panel, putting his massive desk between them and the chaos. He spoke, his voice booming with authority, cutting through Marcus's desperate pleas about data and credit. "Marcus Thorne," Julian's tone was lethal, a precise strike of frost. "Your behavior is unprofessional, disruptive, and warrants immediate disciplinary action. This is the office of the CEO. You are dismissed." He waited until the struggling stopped, until the doors were firmly shut and the heavy silence returned, leaving only the echo of Marcus's rage. The security guard briefly returned, looking shaken, and Julian gave a curt nod, dismissing him too. Shushing face the unspoken pact. Alara stood paralyzed, her hand gripping the edge of the bar, the imprint of Julian's touch still burning on her back. I apologize, Mr. Hayes," she stammered, shame washing over her. "That was unforgivable." Julian poured himself a glass of water, his movements unnervingly calm. He leaned against the bar, his hazel eyes piercing through her professional facade. "Unforgivable, perhaps, but illuminating." He took a slow sip. "He's your husband, you said, Marcus Thorne, the data analyst 3 floors down." Alara could only nod, her cheeks burning. "Yes, we both work here." "I gathered that," Julian said dryly, "and he feels entitled to credit for your $80,000 bonus. He mentioned running the core data. Is that accurate?" "He did assist," Alara admitted carefully. "He's brilliant with numbers, but he lacks the presentation and strategy development. The core concept and the campaign success belong to my team. He came up here uninvited, shouting about your success and his entitlement," Julian summarized, his tone hardening. "That, Alara, is a problem of optics, and it's a serious HR issue, especially since I am his direct organizational superior. I will not have my creative director's work, my highest priority campaign, undermined by internal resentment." Alara finally looked up, finding strength in her shame. "He'll be waiting for me when I get home. I understand any measures you need to take regarding his employment." Julian shook his head, a faint, unreadable smile touching his lips. "No, not yet. I want to see how he handles the situation himself first. I'm going to give him a choice: discretion and compliance or unemployment." He pushed a small, velvet box across the bar toward her. Inside was a platinum access card. "From now on, the collaboration on this campaign requires absolute confidentiality," Julian stated, his eyes locking on hers, making the professional term sound incredibly intimate. "You report directly and only to me. You bypass Victoria, you bypass department heads. You use this card. It grants you access to this suite 24/7. Use the private elevator. Avoid the general office atmosphere." "But why?" Alara whispered. "That's excessive." "Because it stops the noise," Julian said simply. "It stops the questions from your colleagues, it stops his suspicion, and it ensures the success of my campaign. It also keeps you safe from any further domestic interference in the workplace." He was offering her a private escape route, a gilded safe harbor within the glass tower. House with garden, the reckoning. Alara left the Everett and Stone building through the private CEO's entrance, a platinum card feeling like a brand in her palm. The moment she entered her upscale, silent Tribeca apartment, she knew the fragile truce of her marriage was over. Marcus was sitting in the dark living room, nursing a glass of bourbon, his face a mask of bitterness and barely contained rage. "It took you long enough," he sneered, not bothering to turn on the lamp. "Did you and the great man decide on the final cut for my bonus?" "It's not your bonus, Marcus," Alara said, dropping her briefcase onto the marble floor. She felt exhausted, yet strangely fortified by Julian's cold efficiency. "It's my campaign, and you embarrassed both of us and the firm in the CEO's private office." "Embarrassed? I was demanding what I earned," he shouted, slamming his glass down. "I feed you the data. I'm the engine. You just put a pretty ribbon on it and take the spotlight." "Did you even tell him I was the one who provided the core metrics?" "He knows you're my husband," Alara said, her voice flat. And he's furious. You almost cost yourself your job, Marcus. Marcus laughed, a short, ugly sound. Oh, the mighty Julian Hayes, too good to talk to the little people. He'll fire me. Let him. Then we'll see how you manage with all your big-shot creative director salary when you have a messy lawsuit on your hands. He stood up, towering over her. His disappointment curdled into menace. You think you're so special now that you've charmed the top floor. Just remember who you go home to, Alara, and remember who really supports you. Don't think for a minute I won't tell everyone who came up with the metrics if you keep trying to cut me out. Alara looked at her husband, the brilliant, defeated man who had once been her anchor, now her heavy chain. She realized she had to choose her success or his insecurity. She walked past him, heading toward the bedroom, but stopped at the threshold. Julian knows, she said quietly but firmly. Marcus scoffed. Knows what? That I deserve a raise. He knows about the disruption, she clarified. And he's given me a private access card to his floor. He told me to use the private elevator to avoid domestic interference. She saw the moment the reality hit Marcus. His outburst had not only failed, but had resulted in his wife gaining closer, more exclusive, and more discreet access to the one man who could end his career. The one man he couldn't touch. The rage in Marcus's eye was replaced by a dangerous, calculating stillness. The next morning, Alara felt like a ghost in her own life. She had left before Marcus woke, carrying the platinum card like a burden and a key. She avoided the main lobby of Everett and Stone, slipping into the unmarked service corridor reserved for executive use. She found the private elevator, a sleek, silent cage of brushed steel. Sliding the platinum card, she watched the numbers ascend rapidly, bypassing 40 floors of company hierarchy until the doors opened directly into the CEO's reception area. The shift in atmosphere was immediate. Silence, filtered light, and the lingering scent of expensive coffee. The assistant, a woman of impeccable discretion named Sylvia, offered only a knowing, professional half-smile. Mr. Hayes is expecting you, Ms. Vance, Sylvia said, her voice barely a whisper. He asked for you to wait in the conference lounge. He'll be finished with his early call shortly. The first exclusive meeting. Alara waited for 10 minutes, her suit feeling too tight, her control slipping. When Julian finally walked in, the temperature in the room seemed to drop, then spike. He wasn't in his usual imposing suit. He wore charcoal slacks and a crisp white shirt. The sleeves rolled precisely to his forearms, revealing the lean, muscular contours of his arms, a look that was far more James than Julian. He looked like a man who worked, not just a man who commanded. Alara, he greeted her, the name already sounding familiar on his tongue. He moved toward the large glass table. Let's review the digital rollout. For the first hour, it was pure, intense business. Alara had never been challenged this way. Julian didn't just understand her marketing strategy. He understood the underlying psychology of the financial market, pushing her to refine projections, dissecting her demographic analysis until it was razor sharp. The language on this microsite is too broad, Julian interrupted, tapping the screen. We don't want to appeal to everyone. We want to appeal to the hungry, the ones who recognize a tool that unlocks power. Alara stared at him, impressed. That is excellent positioning, Mr. Hayes. Julian, he corrected, his hazel eyes locking with hers. We're past the formalities, Alara, especially in this room. Yesterday established that. The implied meaning of yesterday hung heavy in the air. The confrontation, the shared secret, the intimacy of the whispered warning. Hot beverage, thin ice, and closer proximity. Tell me something, Julian said, leaning back in his chair as Sylvia brought in 2 espressos. Why did you marry him? The abrupt shift from millions of dollars in marketing strategy to the core of her personal pain was jarring. Alara blinked, guarding her expression. That's a rather personal question, Julian. Everything is personal when it affects my campaign, he countered, unapologetic. If your husband's resentment destabilizes your focus, I need to know the root cause. Was he always like that? Alara sighed, swirling the espresso. No, Marcus was brilliant, driven. When we started, he was my biggest cheerleader. But 5 years ago, he was passed over for a major promotion. He never recovered. My success became a mirror reflecting his perceived failure. He started seeing the world as a contest he was losing, and he started seeing me as a rival, not a partner. Julian listened, his expression softening slightly. He didn't offer sympathy, he offered understanding. The gilded cage. You build the structure hopping for security, then realize you're trapped by the gold bars. Alara looked up, surprised by the insight. Exactly. Julian set his cup down. We will work late tonight. I want these projections finalized before market open tomorrow. I'll order dinner. After hours, as the sun set and the city lights came on, painting the office in shades of sapphire and amber, Alara and Julian were deep in the data. They were sitting side by side on the sofa in the lounge, reviewing projections on a large tablet, their heads closed together. Wait, look at this anomaly, Julian said, his voice quiet. He pointed to a graph. Alara leaned in, her shoulder brushing his. She inhaled the scent of his expensive cologne, sandalwood and something crisp, like winter air. It was a clean, powerful scent, and in the close proximity, it made her suddenly aware of the silence of the office, the vast emptiness of the building below them, and the intensely focused man next to her. She noticed the small scar above his left eyebrow, something she hadn't seen when he was standing across the room. She noticed the slight stubble shadow starting to form on his jaw. The anomaly is actually a hidden opportunity, Alara whispered, pointing to a corresponding metric. If we target this niche market, Julian turned his head slightly, their faces mere inches apart. His eyes in the low office light looked like liquid gold. You're right, he breathed, his gaze dropping briefly to her lips before snapping back to her eyes. The professional discussion had fractured, replaced by an awareness that was far more dangerous than any market risk. He straightened immediately, putting a deliberate inch of space between them. The spell was broken, but the air still felt too thin. Let's stick to the numbers, Alara, he said, his voice now a little rough. It's safer there. They worked for another hour, the tension between them a palpable third presence. Julian was all business again, but every accidental touch, every shared glance over the data felt charged with the electricity of what had almost happened and the secret that bound them. As Alara finally packed up at 10 p.m., Julian walked her to the private elevator. I need you back here at 7 a.m. tomorrow, he instructed. We need to finish this before the executive briefing. Understood, Alara replied. She raised her eyes to his. Thank you for the dinner and for the understanding. We are partners in this, Alara, Julian replied, his voice firm, his eyes lingering. And I protect my partners. The elevator doors closed, leaving Alara alone with the terrifying thought. He was not just protecting his campaign, he was protecting her from him and from her husband, and she knew Marcus was definitely awake and waiting for her. Alara arrived home past 10:30 p.m., exhausted but wired from the intense collaboration with Julia. The apartment was not dark this time. Marcus had deliberately left every light blazing, making the living room feel harsh and accusatory. He was waiting in his study, sitting at his desktop. He didn't look up when she entered. 11 hours, Marcus stated, his voice devoid of warmth. 11 hours up in the rarefied air of the penthouse. Did you and Mr. Hayes discuss the authentic storytelling of your relationship? We worked on the digital rollout until we finalized the projections for the executive briefing, Alara replied, stripping off her blazer. She felt tired of defending her professionalism. You know how important this campaign is. Oh, I know how important he is, Marcus sneered, finally swiveling his chair. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed from what she suspected was a mixture of alcohol and staring at spreadsheets. Did he feed you dinner? Did he walk you to the private elevator like you're some kind of prize? He was professional, Alara insisted, walking toward the kitchen. Professional, Marcus's voice rose, cracking with bitterness. When you've gained access to the inner sanctum that I've been shut out of for a decade, you, the creative director, are suddenly having intimate dinners with the CEO while I'm analyzing his data 3 floors below. What did you tell him about me? That I'm an obstruction, that I'm failing. Alara stopped, turning back to face him. I told him the truth, Marcus, that you're brilliant, but that your resentment is destroying you and us. Liar, he spat. You used my outburst to gain favor. You know exactly what you're doing, Alara. You're networking your way to the top by making me look small. Well, I run the numbers, darling, and if I sink, I can make sure the core metrics of your shining campaign sync with me. His threat hung in the air, the implication of data sabotage. Alara felt a cold knot of fear form in her stomach. Briefcase Julian's subtle move. The next morning, Alara again took the private ascent. She was tense, reviewing the latest edits when Julian walked in, carrying 2 mugs of tea instead of coffee. Peppermint, he said, handing one to her. For stress. You look like you slept poorly. Domestic interference, Alara murmured, accepting the warmth of the mug. Julian sat down, his expression unreadable. "Marcus came to see me this morning." Alara's breath hit. "Gee, what? I'm so sorry, Julian. I had no idea." "He didn't make it past Sylvia," Julian assured her. "He stood out there for 10 minutes, demanding to speak to me about salary disparity and unfair credit distribution. Sylvia handled it perfectly, but it created an unfortunate stir." He leaned forward, his voice softening, yet conveying the weight of his power. "I took action, Alara. Not against his employment, not yet, but I did transfer him." Alara frowned. "Transfer him where?" "To the London desk," Julian stated calmly. "Effective immediately. It's a lateral move, a significant technical assignment, and a substantial bump in his base salary. It's a promotion in title, but it isolates him completely from this campaign, from your office, and from this building." Alara was stunned. He hadn't fired Marcus. He had effectively exiled him. He had intervened in her home life with the calculated force of a corporate executive moving a piece on a chessboard. "You can't just move an employee to another continent without notice," she whispered. "I am the CEO, Alara," Julian said, his eyes hard. "I can't, and I did. It removes the threat of sabotage. It removes the daily humiliation he inflicts on you, and it gives you both space to sort out the gilded cage you're in. He leaves next week." He waited for her reaction. A moment of silent, charged expectation. Alara's emotions warred. Relief that the immediate tension was gone, horror at the authoritarian control, and a strange, guilty gratitude for his intervention. "You are blurring the lines, Julian," she said, her voice barely a threat. "The lines were already blurry the minute he burst into my office shouting about his wife's bonus," Julian countered, his voice low. "I am simply setting a new boundary, a professional one that ensures the success of this company, and a personal one that ensures your stability." Wrapped gift, the quiet entrapment. That evening, Alara had a rare, quiet moment at her own desk on the 40th floor. She logged into her professional email, checking for updates on the brief. A new message flashed from Julian. Subject: office gift. She opened it. It was a receipt for a massive, customized bouquet of white lilies, the most beautiful, expensive arrangement she had ever seen. The delivery address was the Vance Thorne residence, Tribeca. The card simply read, "Congratulations on a brilliant presentation, J.H." Alara stared at the screen, her heart hammering. The flowers were a beautiful, public professional gesture, one that was likely to cause buzz among the doorman and apartment staff. But Julian knew exactly what Marcus's reaction would be. Later, Marcus came home, his face a complex mixture of anger and bewildered ambition. The bouquet was sitting on the dining table, a stunning centerpiece of their fractured life. "The flowers were here when I got back from HR," Marcus said, his voice strangely subdued. "London. He's sending me to London. He actually gave me a massive raise, Alara. He framed it as an international leadership opportunity." "It is," Alara said, moving toward him. "It's exile," he corrected, his eyes dark. "He knows what he's doing. He's bought my silence and my absence. And this," he gestured to the lilies, "this is a marking of territory. He's telling everyone I'm out of the picture." He looked at Alara, his calculating stillness now mingled with a spark of genuine hurt. "Are you going to miss me, Alara? Or are you going to enjoy the freedom of the top floor with your powerful partner?" Alara felt the weight of the platinum card in her purse, and the heavy silence of the apartment where Julian's influence now resided, fragrant and undeniable. Julian hadn't just moved Marcus. He had opened the cage and given Alara a choice she wasn't ready to make. The week leading up to Marcus's departure for the London desk was a strained, hollow affair. He was distant, his silence more chilling than his previous outbursts. He moved through the apartment like a stranger, packing his bags, focusing on his exile as a testament to Julian Hayes's cold, tyrannical power. He refused to look at Alara, treating her as Julian's accomplice. Alara, for her part, retreated entirely. She left for Everett and Stone before sunrise and returned long after sunset, using the platinum card and the private elevator as her lifeline. The penthouse office was no longer just a place of work. It was a sanctuary from the oppressive atmosphere of her home. Wineglass the confidant. The forced proximity with Julian escalated their relationship beyond professional collaboration. They worked 16-hour days, shared meals, and reviewed sensitive data, creating an undeniable private world on the 50th floor, inaccessible to anyone else. On Wednesday, midway through the week, Alara was finalizing the executive summary when she hit a wall of exhaustion. She leaned back, pressing her temples, a deep, weary sigh escaping her lips. Julian, who had been on a quiet call in the corner of the lounge, immediately ended it. He walked over to her. "Stop," he commanded gently. "You're running on fumes. Take a break." He poured 2 glasses of sparkling water, but then paused, looking at her drawn face. "Forget the water. You need a glass of wine." "Julian, I shouldn't," Alara started, but her resistance was weak. "You should," he countered, handing her a glass of chilled, deep-red Bordeaux. "You're under immense professional pressure and you're dealing with a painful marital transition. You can drop the shield for 5 minutes, Alara. I won't judge." She took the wine, the rich taste immediately easing the knot in her chest. "How are you managing the London move?" Julian asked, sitting opposite her. "Like a business deal," Alara admitted, looking down at the wine. "Efficient, emotionless, and focused on logistics. He says I'm choosing money over him. I say I'm choosing survival over toxicity." "You're choosing yourself," Julian corrected, his eyes holding hers. "That takes immense courage. Most people stay in the cage because they fear the unknown outside the bars." Alara finally let a raw piece of truth escape. "I feel guilty, Julian, because part of me is so relieved, and I know I owe that relief to you, to your intervention. That level of power, it's intoxicating and terrifying." "Power is simply leverage," Julian said, his voice low. "I used my leverage to create equilibrium. I didn't save you, Alara. I just cleared the battlefield so you could save yourself. Fire the broken barrier." By Friday evening, the air was thick with unspoken tension. They had completed the executive briefing materials and were celebrating with a glass of champagne in Julian's office, the Manhattan skyline glittering like scattered diamonds below. The official work was done, but neither moved to leave. Julian turned away from the window, catching Alara's gaze. The casual work clothes, the late hour, the shared stress, all had eroded the last vestiges of their professional distance. "Your work this week was flawless," Julian praised her. "You are exceptional, Alara Vance." "Thank you, Julian," she replied, her voice soft. The simple, direct compliment meant more than the $80,000 bonus. He took a slow step toward her, his expression intense. "Why are you still holding back? You can breathe here. You don't have to be the guarded, perfect creative director for me. I don't know who I am when I'm not guarded," Alara confessed, the truth tearing through her. "Marcus made sure of that. I learned to build the walls so high, I can't find the door anymore." Julian was close now, close enough for her to feel the warmth radiating from him. He reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek. His touch was light, tentative, yet it felt like a seismic shift. "You are unmistakable," Julian whispered, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "Even behind the walls. That's why I gave you the card, Alara. Not for the campaign, for the access." She closed her eyes, leaning instinctively into the warmth of his hand. The feeling was terrifying, a surrender she hadn't realized she craved. She knew, with stunning clarity, that in this moment, they were no longer boss and employee. They were two people bound by a shared secret and a sudden, irresistible attraction. He lowered his head slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, to rebuild the wall. Alara didn't move. She stayed, suspended in the bright, powerful silence of the penthouse. Their lips met, a soft, hesitant press that quickly deepened, fueled by a week of intense proximity and emotional starvation. It wasn't the clumsy passion of a first date. It was the quiet, profound connection of two people finding an unexpected refuge in each other's presence. Airplane, the farewell, and the future. The moment broke only when Alara heard the sound of her own desperate gasp. She pulled back, her eyes wide, her professional composure shattered. "I have to go," she whispered, her hands shaking. "Marcus leaves tomorrow morning." Julian nodded, his face mirroring a blend of regret and quiet satisfaction. He didn't try to stop her. "I know," he said, his voice still low and rough. "Go. Handle your farewell." He reached into his pocket and placed something small and square into her hand. Another access card, but this one was black, not platinum. "The black card grants you access to my private residence gym, 1 block from your apartment," he explained. "Use it, clear your head. And remember, Alara, the professional boundary is set, but the personal one, it's up to you to define now." Alara left the office in a daze, the taste of Julian still on her lips. She made it home and watched in silence the next morning as Marcus left for the airport, his resentment a final, cold barrier between them. She was free, but she was holding Julian's second key, and she knew that the gilded cage hadn't been fully opened. It had merely been replaced with a quieter, more powerful gilded enclosure. The week following Marcus's departure felt surreal. The apartment was vast and quiet, the silence now a relief instead of a threat. The initial euphoria of freedom, however, quickly gave way to confusion. Alara had spent years navigating the space around Marcus's resentment. Now, In the vacuum, she didn't know how to simply exist. The black card, Julian's private gym access, sat on her bedside table. It represented not exercise, but a choice for intimacy, secrecy, and risk. For 3 days, she avoided it, throwing herself into work on the 40th floor, only using the platinum key for brief, necessary updates with Julian. Their professional exchanges were precise and formal, a deliberate regression to pre-kiss boundaries. But the tension was worse now, sharpened by the memory of his touch. Night with stars, the inevitable surrender. On the 4th evening, the pressure broke. Alara felt suffocated by the professional facade and the sheer loneliness of her massive apartment. She needed to breathe the same air as the man who had seen her at her most vulnerable and still desired her. She dressed in athletic wear, grabbed the black card, and walked the single block to the exclusive, unmarked building. The card slid into the lock, granting her access to a world as private as the penthouse office. The gym was immaculate, empty, and bathed in soft track lighting. She began a frantic workout, trying to purge the confusion from her muscles. After 15 minutes, she heard the door slide shut behind her. Julian, he was already in athletic gear, a simple gray t-shirt and shorts. He hadn't come to work out. He had come to meet her. "I knew you'd come tonight," Julian said, his voice calm, yet resonating with certainty. He didn't approach immediately, giving her space. "You gave me the key," Alara managed, breathless. "You knew I'd use it. I gave you the option to define your boundary," he countered, finally walking toward her, his intense gaze unwavering. "And you defined it by walking into my space after hours, knowing I would be here." He stopped directly in front of her. "Alara, tell me now unequivocally, is this still about business? Or is this about what happened on Friday?" Collision, the new rules. Alara dropped her weight onto her heels, shaking her head. "It's not business. Julian, I am still married. Marcus is my husband, even if he's across the ocean. I don't know the rules of this." "There are no rules," Julian said, reaching out to cup her face with both hands, his touch grounding and magnetic. "Except one. No one can ever know." He pulled her closer, his voice dropping to a low, intense promise. "I won't rush you. I won't define you by your marriage, but I won't pretend either." That kiss was a beginning, Alara, not an ending. He kissed her again, this time with a fierce, possessive need that stripped away any pretense of professionalism. The stress of the last week, the loneliness, the yearning, it all coalesced into the single point of contact. "I've watched you for months, Alara," Julian confessed, his forehead resting against hers. "I saw how brilliant you were, and I saw how much he dimmed your light. I intervened because I wanted you free, and I brought you here because I want you for me." The next hour blurred. It wasn't just physical release. It was a profound emotional connection, a feeling of being truly seen and desired, not just for her ambition, but for the messy, vulnerable woman beneath the sharp suit. Julian was a demanding, attentive lover, and in his arms, Alara felt the walls she had constructed for her marriage crumble completely. Shushing faced the architects of secrecy. The following day, their working dynamic was entirely transformed. Back in the penthouse, their professional collaboration was still flawless, but now, every meeting, every shared document review was laced with secret heat. Julian, however, was a master of separation. He made the rules for their affair crystal clear. Workplace used the platinum card only for prearranged work meetings. Maintain professional distance. No lingering glances. Communication only contact outside of work is via secure, encrypted messaging. Never call or text from company lines. Meetings, physical meetings, are exclusively at the private gym or his private residence using the black card, and only when their schedules allow for zero risk of detection. If Marcus calls or returns, their relationship must immediately revert to professional. "We are building a masterpiece, Alara," Julian told her one afternoon, his voice low, referring to the campaign but clearly meaning their affair. "It requires precision, discretion, and absolute focus. Risk is a constant, but we mitigate it with control." Alara realized that her escape from the gilded cage of her marriage had only led her into Julian's new, exquisitely controlled gilded enclosure. She was no longer trapped by resentment, but by a thrilling, dangerous secret with the most powerful man in Manhattan. As the campaign's rollout approached, the stakes, both professional and personal, were higher than ever. The launch of the Everett and Stone rebranding campaign, spearheaded by Alara's creative direction, was a monumental success. News outlets hailed the firm's new, more empathetic and modern image. Internal morale soared. Alara's reputation was solidified. She was the golden asset who had delivered exactly what the elusive CEO wanted. The public triumph meant a public celebration. The firm hosted an exclusive, televised gala in the museum district to honor the creative team and announce the stellar third-quarter results driven by the new campaign. Alara attended, radiating a quiet confidence she hadn't possessed a few weeks prior. She was the star of the night, fielding compliments from board members and VPs. She was wearing a stunning scarlet dress, a color Marcus had always claimed was too attention-seeking, and she felt completely, unapologetically seen. Julian, true to his private nature, arrived late and remained aloof, mingling with the firm's most elite clients. Their interactions were masterful displays of professional distance, a brief, firm handshake, an intense look of pride as he introduced her to a potential investor, and nothing more. Their secret existed only in the electric current that hummed between them, visible to no one but the architects themselves. Snake an uninvited guest. Midway through the evening, as Alara accepted a glass of champagne, she saw Julian pause, his composed expression freezing for a brief, unsettling moment. His gaze was fixed on the entrance of the ballroom. A woman was making a dramatic entrance. She was breathtakingly elegant, dressed in blinding white, with sharp blonde hair and an air of supreme, inherited arrogance. She didn't look like a client. She looked like royalty who owned the room. Alara watched as Julian composed himself instantly and walked smoothly to intercept the woman before she could reach the main receiving line. They exchanged words, the woman's smile wide and knowing, Julian's polite but strained. The familiarity between them was undeniable, causing a sudden, cold dread to settle in Alara's stomach. Julian returned to Alara moments later, his jaw tight. "Alara," he said, placing a steadying hand on her elbow, "I want you to meet someone. Maintain your professional demeanor. She has no affiliation with the firm." He led her back towards the woman in white. "Astrid," Julian introduced, his voice flat. "This is Alara Vance, the senior creative director who designed the campaign. Alara, this is Astrid van der Zee." Astrid's smile didn't reach her eyes as she assessed Alara from head to toe. The same thorough, proprietary scrutiny Julian himself had employed when they first met. "Ah, the creative director," Astrid purred, her European accent thick and melodic. She extended a cool, gloved hand. "The one Julian has been spending so much personal time with lately." Alara's breath hitched. She fought to keep her expression neutral. "We've been in a state of high-intensity collaboration for the launch, Ms. van der Zee." Astrid gave a dismissive flick of her wrist. "Of course, Julian always requires intense collaboration with his new projects." She turned her focus entirely to Julian, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "Darling, I was in town for just 2 days. I came straight here from the airport. You didn't even tell me about the launch party." Julian stiffened, subtly pulling his arm away. "It was a last-minute decision, Astrid. A professional event." "Nonsense," Astrid chided, her voice loud enough to turn a few heads. "We have an understanding, Julian, and I thought we had an understanding about discretion." She then turned her icy smile back to Alara. "Don't let me detain you, Ms. Vance. Julian and I have some catching up to do. Old friends, you know, with history." Broken heart, the history revealed. Alara managed a professional retreat, her mind reeling. Old friends, history, understanding about discretion. She watched from a distance as Astrid pulled Julian into a quiet corner, their heads closed, the conversation clearly heated despite the low volume. Alara could see the raw frustration on Julian's face, a level of vulnerability she had only witnessed in their private rendezvous. A few minutes later, Julian was by Alara's side again, his expression severe. "We need to leave," he stated, his voice clipped. "Now, private exit." "What was that?" Alara demanded, her own anger mixing with dread. "Who is Astrid?" Julian hesitated, looking genuinely conflicted. "She is a complication. We had a relationship years ago, before she moved back to Europe. It was intensely private and very high stakes. She is the reason I became obsessed with controlling the narrative. She acted like she still owns you," Alara pointed out, her voice sharp. And she certainly implied she knows about our intense collaboration. Julian took her arm, steering her toward the service doors. She knows nothing, but she suspects everything. Astrid is dangerous, Alara. She is part of the small world that knows all my secrets, the world I keep you separate from. As they reached the door, Julian pulled her into the dark corridor. We are compromised here. I am taking you back to your apartment. Door the confrontation. In the privacy of her Tribeca apartment, Alara pulled away from Julian, her exhilaration from the gala utterly extinguished. Did you marry her? Alara asked, needing the truth. No, Julian replied instantly. Never. I have never been married. But she mentioned discretion, Alara pressed. Did she try to expose your last affair? Is that what she does? Julian sighed, running a hand over his face. Astrid and I share ownership in several private ventures. Our relationship was professional and for a time physical. When it ended, she made sure everyone who mattered knew about our private arrangement. She taught me the cost of blurred boundaries. She is capable of using any weakness against me. He looked at Alara, his hazel eyes desperate for her understanding. You are not a mistake, Alara, but I brought you into this and now she is watching. She is the first external threat. The rules of our game just changed. He reached for her, but Alara held up a hand, stopping him. You built an exquisite cage for me to keep Marcus out, Alara said, the scarlet dress feeling like a costume. But you didn't tell me your own history was still standing outside the bars, ready to expose you. And by exposing you, she exposes me. I will handle her, Julian promised, his face etched with resolve. I always handle my threats. How? Alara challenged. By sending her to the London desk, or by giving her a massive promotion and buying her silence, the way you did with my husband. The next morning, the adrenaline of the previous night had solidified into cold resolve for both Alara and Julian. There was no time for their usual private rendezvous. The threat posed by Astrid van der Zee was existential to their secret and Julian's reputation for absolute control. Julian spent the morning sequestered with his chief legal counsel, a flurry of intense, hushed calls filtering through Sylvia's closed door. Alara waited on the 40th floor, the silence of the private arrangement now feeling less like sanctuary and more like isolation. Finally, Julian summoned her to the penthouse. He was dressed in a pristine suit, looking every inch the ruthless CEO, his vulnerability from the night before completely masked. Astrid is a partner in 3 venture capital funds and a shareholder in several of our private investments. Julian began without preamble, packing the room. The legal entanglement is messy. If she tries to leverage our past relationship, it threatens to expose our partnership and cause a PR disaster for Everett and Stone. And if she exposes me, Alara asked, her voice steady. The creative director who started an affair with the CEO while her husband was still an employee and is now exiled in London. Julian stopped packing, his gaze softening slightly. She won't. I won't allow it. How are you going to handle her, Julian? I've offered her a settlement, a clean break from our shared ventures, heavily favoring her, Julian revealed. A financial offer designed to buy absolute silence and her immediate return to Geneva. Alara felt a sudden nausea. You're trying to buy her, just like you bought Marcus's absence. I am applying the most efficient form of leverage, Julian corrected, his tone defensive. It removes the problem immediately, and it works. Astrid values wealth above all else. A cold revelation. Later that afternoon, Julian received the expected reply. Astrid had refused the cash offer. He slammed the tablet down on his desk, an action so rare it startled Sylvia, even in the reception area. She doesn't want money, Julian told Alara, his frustration raw. She wants leverage. She wants control over my next major acquisition, a hostile takeover of the digital security firm Nexus Corp. Alara frowned. That takeover is the key part of the new campaign's growth and security phase. If she gets control, she compromises the entire strategy and makes me look weak to the board, Julian finished bitterly. She wants a seat at the table, not a payout. She wants to be seen as the woman who beat Julian Hayes. Julian had a choice to make. When he couldn't solve with money, he had to either sacrifice a crucial business deal to buy her silence or risk exposure of his affair with Alara by fighting Astrid publicly. Just the sacrifice. You can't give her Nexus Corp, Alara whispered. That deal makes Everett and Stone relevant in the next decade. If you concede, your reputation takes a bigger hit than if you just weather a personal scandal. Julian looked out at the city, a man facing an impossible intersection of his private and professional lives. You're right, he said, his voice hard. But there's another way. She knows I value control above all. If I give her what she truly wants, she will take it and leave. He turned to Alara, his eyes dark with a sudden, difficult resolution. Astrid believes that I am still the same man who hides from scrutiny, Julian explained. She believes I will choose my reputation over my feelings. So I am going to prove her wrong, but not in the way she expects. Julian made 2 calls. The first was to his legal counsel, instructing them to cease negotiations with Astrid and prepare for a legal battle over the Nexus Corp acquisition. The second was to his personal publicist, a woman named Claire, whom he instructed to meet him immediately. Camera with flash the new narrative. That evening, Alara received a cryptic, encrypted message from Julian. Wear the Scarlet. Meet me at the Central Park opening event. No private entrance. Main carpet, 8 p.m. Alara's heart pounded. This went against every rule of secrecy they had established. This was a direct escalation. At 8:00 p.m., Alara arrived at the high-profile Central Park Conservatory fundraiser, dressed in the same defiant scarlet gown she had worn to the gala. She was instantly overwhelmed by the press line and the flashbulbs. Julian was waiting at the head of the velvet rope. He was immaculate, composed, and utterly focused on her. He didn't offer a handshake. He walked straight to her, took her hand, and tucked it securely into the crook of his arm, a gesture of ownership and public display. He leaned down, close to the microphone bank, the sound of the camera shutters reaching a frenzy. Ms. Vance, Julian announced clearly, drawing every eye and lens in Manhattan to them. The success of Everett and Stone is due entirely to her brilliant vision. I am delighted to announce that Alara Vance has been promoted to Chief Creative Officer, effective immediately. She is the future of this company. The crowd erupted in a clamor of congratulations. Alara was reeling, barely processing the title change. Chief Creative Officer. It was a massive, unprecedented leap. Then, Julian looked directly into the camera lenses, his gaze challenging the world. And on a personal note, Julian continued, his voice dropping slightly, but loud enough to carry through the microphones. Alara and I have been developing an incredibly rewarding personal partnership over the last few weeks. We are both excited to see where this journey takes us. He looked down at Alara, his eyes filled with a desperate, public affection that felt both genuine and strategically manufactured. Julian was defining the narrative before Astrid could. He was presenting their relationship not as a scandalous affair with a subordinate, but as a power parent, a reward for her brilliance, and a natural next step for 2 driven individuals. He had chosen to control the public story, even if it meant exposing their secret on his terms. Alara knew Julian was laying down a massive professional sacrifice, inviting scrutiny to protect her from Astrid's malicious whisper campaign. The price was their secrecy. As they walked the carpet, Julian whispered into her ear, his breath warm against her temple. The price of controlling the narrative, Alara. Now she can't ruin us. We already defined the terms. The news hit the digital wires at midnight and dominated the financial headlines by morning. The images of Julian Hayes and Alara Vance walking the red carpet, accompanied by the announcement of her unprecedented promotion to Chief Creative Officer and his personal declaration, were everywhere. The fallout at Everett and Stone. The executive team. Alara arrived at the office to a flurry of forced smiles and cold resentment from the VPs. Her former supervisor, who was a likely candidate for the CCO role, avoided eye contact. Julian's move had clearly leapfrogged her past long-established hierarchy, creating a power vacuum fueled by the suspicion that their personal partnership was the true currency of her promotion. Julian's position. Julian had faced the board in an emergency session early that morning. They were furious about the PR risk but silenced by the campaign's success and the undeniable rise in the firm's stock price following the announcement. He had asserted his authority. Alara Vance was now an essential figure, not a disposable subordinate. Alara sat in her new, sprawling corner office, moved overnight to the CCO floor, realizing the cost of Julian's protection. She was no longer just the brilliant creative director. She was now permanently branded as the CEO's woman, a label that carried immense power, but also immense scrutiny. Telephone receiver. The call from London. The phone ringing on her desk, displaying a +44 area code, felt like a physical assault. It was Marcus. Alara answered, her voice tight. Marcus, I assume you've seen the news. Seen it. His voice was a chilling mixture of hysterical laughter and pure venom. It's all over the London desks. The brilliant, newly promoted chief creative officer, and the CEO, declaring their incredibly rewarding personal partnership 1 week after exiling her husband to another continent. "I didn't exile you, Marcus," Alara countered, gripping the phone. "That was a high-profile promotion you accepted. This happened after you left." "Oh, it was meticulously planned before I left. You knew. You used my outburst as a trigger," Marcus shouted. "That whole London assignment was just a corporate divorce strategy, paid for by the man who wanted to sleep with my wife." The accusation hung heavy, the undeniable truth that Julian had orchestrated the separation using his power. "I didn't choose Julian over you, Marcus," Alara said, her own voice cracking. "I chose my career over your bitterness. I chose my happiness over your resentment. And I chose my survival over the toxic silence of our marriage. Julian simply offered me a path I was too afraid to take." "Survival?" Marcus scoffed. "You think you're free? You've just traded my gilded cage for his solid gold shackle. You belong to him now. And when the market shifts or the partnership gets less rewarding, he'll toss you aside and hire a new CCO. Don't think for a minute I won't be back, Alara. Not for you, but for what you took from me." He hung up, leaving Alara shaking in her massive, cold office. The gilded cage of her new reality felt suddenly very real. Snake Astrid's retaliation. Later that day, a package arrived for Alara. It was a single, pristine white lily, a grotesque mirror of Julian's office gift from weeks ago, and a handwritten note on expensive stationery. "Dearest Alara, congratulations on the magnificent promotion. Julian always rewards those who protect his vulnerabilities. You have certainly earned your title, trading one man's name for another's power." Julian thought he controlled the narrative by going public. He forgot he can't control the past. "He didn't tell you the real reason why I insisted on discretion years ago. Ask him about Project Chimera and the NDA he had you sign the minute you became CCO. It's not about market strategy, darling. It's about protecting the Hayes family name. Good luck in your new role. The view is always clearer from the top, isn't it?" Astrid, Alara felt a wave of icy shock. She had signed a massive, confidential NDA as part of her CCO contract, a document she assumed was related to the Nexus Corp acquisition strategy. The NDA was so broad and sweeping, she had barely paused to read the fine print, trusting Julian completely. Astrid's note implied the NDA was about Julian's personal life, and that the Nexus Corp fight was merely a cover story for something Julian was deeply afraid of, something that wasn't just about his past relationship, but his family's integrity. Alara used the platinum card to go up to Julian's office, the platinum key now feeling heavy and poisoned in her hand. She stood across his desk, placing the note down, careful not to touch the white lily. "Astrid sent me this," Alara said, her voice dangerously quiet. "She claims the CCO NDA is about protecting a Hayes family secret. She mentioned something called Project Chimera. Julian, what haven't you told me?" Julian looked at the note, his composed mask finally cracking, a flicker of genuine fear crossing his eyes. He slowly reached into a secure drawer and pulled out a single, heavily redacted legal document. "Alara," he began, his voice barely a rasp, "the personal cost of this relationship is higher than you know. This is the truth, and this is why I needed the CCO title and the NDA in place before I took you public." Julian pushed the redacted document across the desk. His hands were not steady. For the first time since she met him, the CEO of Everett and Stone looked terrified, stripped of his usual ruthless control. "Project Chimera," Julian whispered, his voice heavy with years of secrecy. "It's the name of a private legal trust, established 5 years ago by the Hayes family lawyer. It's not about business strategy, Alara. It's about a child." Alara stared at him, bewildered. "A child? Julian, what does that have to do with the CCO NDA?" Julian ran a hand through his hair, his hazel eyes burning with regret. "When Astrid and I were together, she was intensely focused on inheriting a portion of my family's power. She threatened to create a scandal, claiming I was fathering children outside of marriage to spite the bull." He paused, gathering himself. "I have a son, Alara, a 4-year-old boy named Alexander. He is the result of a brief, compassionate relationship with a brilliant, but very private woman who passed away 2 years ago. The board and the public know nothing. They believe the Hayes line is currently dormant." Alara felt the room spin. Julian Hayes, the detached, controlled billionaire, had a secret son. The NDA, Julian explained, pointing to the document. It's a blanket confidentiality clause that legally binds you, as CCO and my public partner, to silence regarding any non-corporate sensitive family matter. Astrid is threatening to expose Alexander's existence to force a paternity claim and extract control over the Nexus Corp acquisition, arguing that my personal instability makes me unfit to lead the firm. And you brought me into this, Alara said, the rage rising, sharp and clean. You made me CCO, not because you wanted me at the top, but because you needed my legal silence to protect your son and your company. You turned me into an enforceable NDA. I took you public because I love you, Alara, Julian insisted, stepping around the desk, reaching for her. But yes, I needed to protect Alexander. Your promotion gives us an ironclad reason for the board to accept you, and the NDA gives me the legal shield to fight Astrid. I am sorry I didn't tell you, but I couldn't risk the leap. Alara pulled away, the accusation from Marcus echoing in her mind. You've just traded my gilded cage for his solid gold shackle. Balance the final choice. The truth was a heavy, complicated thing. Julian hadn't used her maliciously, but he had used her promotion and his love as strategic weapons in his war to protect his son and his empire. Alara stared at the floor, seeing her life in pieces. Marcus, her past, defined by resentment and slow destruction. Julian, her present and her future, defined by exhilarating passion and absolute, controlling power. Alexander, an innocent child, dependent on her silence and Julian's control. If I stay, Alara asked, finally looking at Julian, I am choosing to become a co-architect of this lie. I'm choosing to stand by the powerful man who controls every narrative, including my own career. I'm choosing to be the CCO who is also the secret son's stepmother. You are choosing us, Julian corrected, his voice pleading. You are choosing a life where you are valued and free of Marcus, and where you and I can finally be honest, now that the truth is between us. Key the view from the top. Alara walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, gazing out at the vast, intimidating city. Astrid's final words came back to her. The view is always clearer from the top, isn't it? The view was clear now. She was CCO because she was brilliant, but her CCO title was activated by a hidden, personal agenda. She was free of Marcus, but only because Julian had bought his absence. She turned back to Julian, her expression calm, the ultimate professional composure settling over her. I need a divorce, Julian, she stated, her voice firm. Marcus has to know this marriage is over before I can start any other life. I will arrange the legal documentation immediately, Julian agreed, relief flooding his face. Alara continued, her gaze unwavering. And I need a separate legal agreement regarding the CCO position, explicitly detailing my role, my independence, and my full legal knowledge of Project Chimera, with an equal stake in Alexander's future protection. I will not be your shield without being your full, legal, and equal partner in the company and in your life. She took one last look at the document on the desk, then back at the man who held her future in his powerful hands. I am accepting the risk, Julian, Alara concluded, the newly minted CCO taking charge of her own narrative. I am not returning to the cage, but if you ever use my love or my career to secure another secret from me, I will use my new title and my knowledge to bring the entire narrative and your empire down. Julian Hayes, the man who controlled everything, knew he had just met his match. He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile of both respect and defeat. Welcome to the top, Alara Vance, he said, walking to her and taking her hand, not as a boss or a lover, but as a true partner. Let's start building our new narrative. The end.